you're anything like me, you are trying to figure out how to make as much money with your side hustle on the side of a full-time job. My name is Becky Park. I am a full-time high school choir teacher, and I have a variety of different side hustles that I have turned to help me make an additional 6 figures last year. And in today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you the time-saving hacks that I use to get the most out of the limited time that I have to spend on my side hustle. Let's get into it. First thing I want you to do when you wake up in the morning is ask yourself, what is the one big thing I have to get done today? And oftentimes it's the scariest thing. It's the thing that's gonna take up the most amount of time and mental energy. But ask yourself, what is that one thing, and schedule your day around it. Make sure that that one thing gets done. If you are able to do that thing first, maybe you woke up early in the morning before you have to go to work, but try to get that thing done first so that you feel super accomplished for the day. And that'll actually help you get so many other things done because you got that one big thing out of the way. The next time-saving hack that I wanted to talk to you about is something that I call the 5-minute rule. And I think that this ties into the idea of accomplishing that one big thing as early as you can, or at least planning your day around it so that you can ensure that it gets done. Oftentimes that one big thing is something that we've been putting off because it's gonna take up a lot of time, or we don't really know how to do it yet and there's gonna be a lot of research involved. I'm not gonna lie to you, filming this video today was my one big thing. And so my second time-saving hack that you can apply towards that one big thing, or really towards anything else, is just to devote 5 minutes to it. Just say, for the next 5 minutes, I'm going to do blank. This is especially helpful when tackling things that you're just not looking forward to tackling. Just say to yourself, I'm gonna set a timer for 5 minutes and I just have to do this for the next 5 minutes. And typically what happens is you'll realize that once you are 5 minutes in, you're much more likely to just keep going. The hardest part is just getting started. And it's hard getting started because you're anticipating, oh my gosh, this is gonna eat up the next 3 hours of my day. But if you tell yourself, it's just 5 minutes, I just have to commit to 5 minutes of whatever it is that I have to do, one, you have accomplished the big Herculean task of just getting started. And secondly, you are much more inclined to just keep going. So whatever it is that you have to do today that you're like, I don't want to do it. It is so hard. I don't even know how to get started. Just commit to doing it for 5 minutes, set that timer. And if it really is that hard and that horrible and that awful, 5 minutes later, you can be done for today. And then you can set another 5-minute alarm tomorrow, but just commit 5 minutes to whatever task it is that you are scared of starting. My third hack is this, and it might seem counterintuitive for someone who's trying to accomplish as much as possible in a short amount of time, but don't multitask. And the reason I say that is because when we multitask, we actually just do a far less better job at the multiple things that we're doing. For example, I had this really bad habit of trying to list items while I was editing videos. And the idea behind it was I'll just kind of listen to the video in the background, and if I hear a mistake, I'll be able to go back to it, but there's not quite that many. So in the meantime, I'll just list an item while I'm listening to the video, and I'll be able to accomplish 2 things at once. This definitely just resulted in me missing mistakes in my videos while editing and adding mistakes into my listings while I was listing. So while you may be tempted to do 2 or 3 or 4 things at one time, especially if it is something that's very important to helping you bring in more income for your side business, I recommend just putting all of your focus and energy on one task at a time so that you only have to do that task one time so that there are no mistakes within the task as you're doing it. And the end result will actually be that you're saving time by just focusing on that one task at hand, because you're not going to have to redo it over and over again or spend time fixing mistakes that you made because you were trying to juggle multiple things at once. Tip number 4 is to actually be even more diligent about your health. Invest time in your health and well-being in order to get the most out of your side hustle. And what I mean by that is, I think oftentimes those of us who have these business ventures on the side of our full-time jobs, we put every second that we have of our spare time into those businesses. And that can be really unhealthy because it's causing us to ignore our health. It's causing us to ignore relationships that are important to us, relationships that kind of fill us and sustain us. And by ignoring those things, we're actually just creating worse versions of ourselves that, one, cannot stay healthy, so maybe we get sick more often, and two, are just kind of sad and depressed. And that's because we are ignoring those relationships in our lives, and it's because we're unable to spend time with those that we love, people who fill us. So even though you feel like spending time with loved ones or spending time on yourself to exercise, to go on long walks, even though it seems like those things are actually taking up time that you could be spending on your business, these are actually things that you should view as investments in yourself. If you are the best version of yourself health-wise, if you are happy and fulfilled because you're able to spend time with those that you love, then you're going to be able to do your best work. And I know in my last tip, I just said not to multitask, and I'm going to contradict that right now a little bit, but I think that there are really clever ways to sneak in exercise into your daily routine without losing too much time at all. So for example, I invested in this working bike. So I'm cycling right now, but there is a desk at the top where I can put my laptop, and very easily while I am cycling, I can do things like list for my reselling business. I can do things like respond to emails. There are certain things I don't like to do on this Flexi Spot bike. Things like editing YouTube videos. I think the movement of like cycling and then trying to, do the things that I do while I'm editing, I think that does make it a little tough, but there are plenty of things that I can do while cycling on my laptop to kind of kill two birds with one stone. I'm getting some great cardio in, some great zone 2 cardio, while also getting some work done. I will have this exact bike linked down below in the description, but there are also really great like walking treadmill pads that you can put underneath standing desks so that you can walk while you're working. I will link some of those options down below as well. Another example of killing two birds with one stone could be going for a long walk outside and calling up a friend or a family member that you haven't had a chance to talk to in a while. Killing two birds with one stone. You are taking care of your body and feeding your heart at the same time. But with technology being what it is today, it's just gotten so much easier to multitask your health, at least when it comes to, cardio and just getting some more steps in for the day. It's gotten a lot easier to do that at the same time of getting some work done. And I am literally getting a little short of breath as I continue to cycle here. So even filming this video, kill two birds with one stone. My fifth tip comes from a book by Brian Moran called The 12-Week Year. And the premise of the book is that instead of looking at an entire year when we are making goals and, coming up with initiatives within our business, we should actually chunk up the year into 4 12-week periods. And the reason for that is because a lot of times when businesses are looking at themselves from the perspective of a year, there is a lot of time to try and accomplish the goals that they set for themselves, their sales goals, whatever initiatives they're trying to reach. When you're starting in January and you have all the way until December to accomplish these goals, you just keep telling yourself that there's a lot of time. And what happens is there's a mad rush at the very end in December to, do whatever it takes to hit those goals. And a lot of gains are made in those final weeks. But what if instead of spending an entire year to get to that point, we actually structure our year into 12-week chunks? And what that means is within the first 12 weeks of the year, within that first quarter, we have a shorter span of time to accomplish those goals. And so we have a greater sense of urgency throughout. And then we have that crunch time at the end of the quarter to try and hit those goals. And we do that 4 times in the year, which means we have 4 times throughout the year that we have set initiatives, that we have set goals for ourselves. And we have had that big push at the end of each quarter to make those things happen, to try and accomplish those goals. The book goes on to do multiple case studies of a bunch of different businesses that followed this method, and in doing so made so much more money in one given year by not looking at it as one year, but actually 4 different segments within the year. So what that means for us as people with side hustles is, yes, we should still set goals for ourselves. Yes, we should still have, these strong pushes to accomplish those goals as we get get closer to the deadline. But instead of doing that on a yearly basis, we should do that on a quarterly basis. And in doing so, we'll have a greater sense of urgency to accomplish the things that we set out to do. And we'll have 4 times throughout the year that we're able to just really put our foot on the gas to try and hit these goals that we've set for ourselves. By the way, if you notice this giant bump under my eye, I think I got bit by something. Like, what in the what? But the 6th tip that I have for you when it comes to getting more done in a small amount of time is something called batch working. Batch working is when you kind of break up the different tasks that you have to do and just focus on one task at a time. So for example, when I list an item, I have to go through various steps. The first thing I have to do is I have to photograph the item. I then have to edit those photographs. And finally, I have to create listings. I put those photographs that I took into the listing, and I put those listings on the various platforms that I plan on reselling that item on. So rather than taking a piece of clothing, photographing it in my Lightbox, editing the photos right then and there, uploading those photos to my computer at that time, and creating the listing, and then pushing those listings out to all of the different platforms that I sell on, rather than going through that whole process over and over again, what I do is I take 30 minutes to photograph as many items as possible. I just get through the photographs. I don't worry about editing them. And then later, when I've got like 5 or 10 minutes of time, maybe while I'm waiting outside of where my daughter does gymnastics to pick her up, maybe while I'm in line at the grocery store, that's a really nice 5 or 10 minute pocket of time that I can quickly go through and edit those pictures. And the reason for that is because when I take 30 minutes to simply photograph items and get through as many items as I can, I'm able to get into a nice little groove and just focus on doing that same task over and over again, versus breaking that up to stop, get out my phone and edit the picture, during which time I might get a little distracted because I might see that a text came through, not having to sit there and wait for all those photos to upload to my computer and then dragging those pictures to the listing. It just means that I'm able to stay in that particular zone of genius and focus on photographing. And later, when it's time for me to just do my listings, I can get on my Flexi Spot bike, and while I'm cycling, I can just go ahead and focus on knocking out those listings. And that way I don't have to worry about breaking up whatever flow I have going on. I'm able to just hone in on one task and accomplish a lot of that same task over and over again. And in doing so, I find that I actually save so much time doing that. My next tip is to create time blocks within your schedule where you want to accomplish certain things. This is similar to my last tip about batching, but it's more so about just scheduling and putting in your calendar when those things are going to take place. When are you going to batch work? There is that wise saying that what doesn't get scheduled doesn't get done. And it's the idea of looking at your schedule for the day, whether you use an actual calendar like Google Calendar, whether you like to write out what your plans are for the day, but it's creating actual time blocks of saying from 12 o'clock to 2 o'clock, I'm going to sit down and film a YouTube video. Or from 2 o'clock to 2:30, I'm going to photograph as many items as I can from my death pile. It's actually scheduling out blocks of time where you say you're going to do things, because that's definitely going to increase the chances that that actually gets done, because it's going to help you prioritize what you do throughout the day. If you are left with the choice around 1 o'clock of just kind of hanging out after lunch and scrolling on your phone through social media versus, taking pictures versus listing for your reselling business, if on your calendar it says that you're supposed to list, the chances of you actually listing are much higher than if it wasn't in your calendar in the first place. You might actually have what we call decision paralysis, where you're sitting there going, I have some free time. What should I do with it? If you already have some time blocks scheduled out on your calendar, that decision paralysis doesn't even exist, because it's already been decided for you. You decided earlier that day or the night before that in this block of time, you were going to be listing and you were going to make progress in growing your reselling business in that way. So say it with me. What gets planned gets done. And however you want to start planning out your days, whether it's on paper or on the computer, just figure out something so that you can actually be more productive with the time that you have and get more done. My 8th tip is to delegate as much as you can, specifically the things that you hate to do. So I think this works in 2 different ways. One, you can delegate tasks that are related to your side hustle, or you can delegate tasks that you just have to do for your own personal life. Let's start with, for example, example, what I need to do for my side hustle, for reselling, I have to do certain things in order to be successful as a reseller that I hate doing. For example, I hate sharing my closet on Poshmark. I hate having to take the time out of my life to send offers to likers on Poshmark. And so I have found a Chrome extension that will take care of those things for me, and that's called Posher VA. Although it's a paid service that I have to shell out some money for, it is something that helps me buy back a good amount of my time. Another thing that I hate doing is cross-listing manually to a bunch of different platforms, and that's why I pay a monthly fee to List Perfectly, because List Perfectly helps me not only get things from List Perfectly to other platforms very quickly, much quicker than it would take if I were to do that manually, but it also will create sales reports for me. It's a place for me to store all of my inventory information. It is just a godsend when it comes to helping me organize my reselling business, and I am willing to pay good money for that because it helps me buy back a good chunk of my time. When we think about even things that we can delegate out in our personal lives, I personally do not like to cook. My husband thankfully does, but if it was left to my own devices and I was responsible for putting food on the table, I would probably turn to something like Factor. I don't use Factor. I've never tried it, but I've heard really good things. Factor or Huel, that's another one. These are companies that will send you food that is very easy and quick to make while also being very healthy and nutritional. So I'm talking even faster at saving time than things like, oh my gosh, what is it called? What's that service? They like send you meals and you have to cook them. I don't know. There's a bunch. There's like Blue Apron. There's the one that I cannot think of right now. Those still eat up a good amount of time because you are having to cook the products. I'm talking like, send me something I can stick in the microwave. Another thing I hate to do is clean. I am not good at cleaning our house, especially when it comes to like a deep clean. So we hire cleaners to come every 2 weeks. And yes, we have to pay money for that. But again, what we're doing is buying back our time so that we can use that time to do things that are going to help us make more money for our business. There are probably lots of different pain points in your life, whether it's with your side hustle or whether it's in your personal life, that you can give those tasks away by giving someone money to do those items for you. And in doing so, you have bought back hours of your time so that you can put those hours back into your business. And these are things that honestly, someone else is probably going to do a better job of anyway. These people that clean our home do a much better job of it than I ever would. I just would not pay that much attention to detail the way that they do. And so not only are you still making sure that your house is clean, groceries is another great example, having groceries delivered to your home, things like having meals. Not only are those things still happening, but they're happening maybe even better than if you were to do it yourself, and you don't have to spend your time doing those things. Another huge time saver specifically for my side hustle is keyboard shortcuts. And if you're an Apple user, you can even have the same settings from your phone carry over to your laptop. But what I have done is I've created keyboard shortcuts so that if I type something specific, like just one word, out will pop an entire paragraph or whatever it is that I need. One side hustle that I've been experimenting with, I have to give my address out pretty often so that I can get items sent to my home. And instead of having to type my address out every single time, I've created a shortcut where all I have to do is type the word ADDR with an exclamation point at the end. That's not something that I typically type in a regular conversation. So I know I'm not going to accidentally send my keyboard shortcut to someone, which means I would accidentally send them my home address. Then what actually happens is my address will show up and take the place of that ADDR exclamation point. I also use this in my reselling business because I have certain things that I like to have at the end of every single listing. And instead of having to type those 3 sentences out over and over and over again, all I have to do is, I think my keyboard shortcut for one of those things is the word shoes with an exclamation point at the end. So I type shoes, exclamation point, and out pops 3 sentences that go at the end of every listing of all of my shoes. This is something you can use for cold emails if you are sending out a bunch of emails to different potential clients and it's a generic email that's going to go to everyone. You can type Dear Billy Bob and then whatever your keyboard shortcut is, and out pops the entire email so that you don't have to sit there and type it out over and over again. I know another option is just to have your email or your little description or your address in like the notes app of your phone or on your computer, but that still takes time to have to go there, to copy it, and then to paste it every time into wherever it is that you're putting that message. Keyboard shortcuts has been a way that I have probably saved a cumulative like 100+ hours. My next hack is something that I haven't utilized realize very much, but I want to be better about doing. And that is, there are a lot of settings to help you get more done by getting rid of any distraction. For example, on my iPhone, if I swipe down, I get taken to this page. And if I click on what says focus, it has all of these different options in regards to what I see while I'm on my phone. But if I go to the do not disturb, this is what I would press if I don't want to see any notifications, and if I also want other people to know that I have my notification silenced. But if I click on the three dots, I can actually personalize even more certain things about this. So for example, I can state that I just want to be on do not disturb for 1 hour, or, because my calendar is synced to my phone knows that I'm supposed to be at acapella callbacks right now. I actually didn't have to do it because I was able to form the group without doing callbacks. But if I just want to have this do not disturb function on my phone until the end of that, then I can click on until the end of this event and it'll automatically turn off for me so that I can once again see notifications. I can personalize this even further by going into settings, and I can decide which people I want to be able to have access to me even when do not disturb is turned on, or which apps I want to allow notifications from while in do not disturb mode. So you can do that for all of these. There's personal mode, there's sleep mode, there's work mode. And for sleep mode, for example, you can customize when exactly it gets turned on and when exactly it gets turned off. So these are all things that you can set up on your phone from the get-go so that you don't even have to think about it. Like, you can just have it so that every time you have an event scheduled, your phone's going to go into do not disturb, or maybe it goes into focus mode. And while I'm sure that Androids have their own version of this, this is one tool that Apple has created, and it works across, iPhones, iPads, MacBooks, where you are able to customize what it is that your devices are even allowed to show you. And they'll block calls for you. They'll do all of these different things so that you can be as productive as possible. So if you just take like 5 minutes to figure out how to personalize all of those different settings to work to your advantage, you're going to be able to eliminate a lot of distractions that probably take you away from your zone of genius more often than you even know. My next tip is on the same topic of getting rid of distractions, and it is this new app that I discovered called ClearSpace. I think I saw an ad for it randomly on like Instagram or something like that, and I instantly went and downloaded the app because the app combined everything that I could ever want, which is health and fitness with a way to rid yourself of distractions on your phone. So basically how the app works is you pick different apps on your phone that you want to restrict yourself from, apps that you know are just a time suck. So for myself, I picked Instagram and Facebook. And what I love about this app is that you can create challenges. And the challenges are to ensure that in order for you to spend time on the apps that you select from your phone, you have to move your body in order to earn the right to use those apps. So the 3 different options that they have are push up to scroll. So you have to do a certain number of push-ups in order to utilize, for me again, Instagram or Facebook, or you have to do a certain number of squats to use those apps, or you have to take a certain number of steps. So the ad that I saw, the guy had it set up where like in order to scroll on Instagram for even a minute, he had to do 10 push-ups, and you literally have to like set your phone up in front of you while you're doing your push-ups, and your phone will see the action of you doing the push-up and count your push-ups in order to give you time on your app. It's crazy. And that's where I was like, oh my gosh, I need this, because I was finding that I was spending and wasting so much time on Facebook, like not even catching up on the lives of my friends and family and loved ones, like literally just reading random articles about things that don't matter. And so when I saw the ad, I was like, let me try this. I went with the step to scroll challenge. And so if you click on that, you start a challenge, or you can join someone else's. You set the difficulty of it. So this is set up right now where I have to take 500 steps in order to earn 1 minute of scrolling on either Instagram or Facebook. And so they're saying on an average day, I take 6.4 thousand steps, which means if I were to do that, I would have earned 12 minutes of time on Instagram or Facebook. And I can make that harder. I can say I have to take 1,000 steps in order to earn a minute of scrolling, or I can make that a little bit easier. You can customize it however you want, which I like as well. And then for 3 days, the app literally will not not let you use those apps that you selected unless you move in those ways. They're gonna give me a quote that basically just like guilts me into not wanting to spend time on the app. So this one says, good habits make time your ally, bad habits make time your enemy. And then I have to click use app. I have to select how long I want to be in the app for, and they give you a maximum of 10 minutes. So I'll choose 10 minutes. And then I have to go open the app. It creates so much friction when it comes to using the app. Like, it just makes it so hard to use the app. And therefore I have found myself using Facebook and Instagram so much less than I was in the past. And you would think with the amount of time that I am investing to talk about this app that it is sponsoring me to make this video. No, they don't know that I exist. I should reach out to them. I should reach out and be like, look at this little promo that I did for you. I just found that it helped me stay off of time-sucking apps in a way that nothing ever has before. You do have to pay for the app, and I was planning on deleting it because I was like,
I've built up good habits and I'm not going to use these apps as much anymore after this free trial.
And then I forgot to end my free trial and it automatically took money from my account. I don't even care. I think it was like $40 for the year. I think it's gonna be a $40 well spent because it's gonna be a lot less time that I am wasting on apps like Facebook and Instagram. And if I want, I could, take out one of those apps and put something else in its place. I could block like 10 different apps if I want, but I think those two are the ones that take up the most amount of time for me. And so ClearSpace is helping me set boundaries with those apps and furthermore forcing me to be more active. Like, what a genius app. The next tip that I have is to have a running list, maybe on like the Notes app on your phone, of things you can do for different time increments. So what I mean is, have a list of things you can do if you have 5 minutes to spare. Have a list of things you can do if you have 10 minutes to spare, or 20 minutes. And the reason for that is because oftentimes we find ourselves in between tasks. Maybe we've finished something and we've got like 10 minutes before we need to leave to go pick up our kids from school, and we don't really know what to do with that 10 minutes. And oftentimes what we'll do is we'll just go to our phones and, scroll on Facebook or Instagram. And Facebook and Instagram are not bad, by the way. It's just that if we're not intentional about how we're using those apps, they can just take up a lot more of our time than they need to. If instead on our phones, we have a list of things that we can do every time we have a spare 10 minutes, then we are going to even be productive with 10 minutes of spare time versus just using that time to loaf around and not do anything. For example, in my list of things that I can do if I have 5 minutes to spare, it's things like send offers to likers on eBay. It's things like do 10 push-ups. On my list of things to do if I have 10 minutes to spare, I have things like check and respond to a number of emails, or I have things like list 2 items, because I know I can do that in the span of 10 minutes. So it's a really great way to just kind of put a list of things that you want to get done throughout the day. And if you have small chunks of time, you can just turn to those things. And finally, I want to have an everlasting list of things that just generally need to get done that require larger chunks of time, because every once in a while we might have plans that fall through and we've got, an afternoon that we didn't think that we would have. But if we have a list of things that we're like, oh, these are things that I would love to do if I just had more time, bam, there it is. And on that list for me are things like, going through our kids' clothes and figuring out which items need to get donated because it's too small for them, or cleaning my reselling space. These are things that need much larger chunks of time. And so I like to have an everlasting list of things that need to get done for those moments when I do have time on my hands and I can actually accomplish a larger task. And that way I'm not wasting time trying to figure out what should I do right now and instead just scrolling on Instagram. My final tip is something called the Pomodoro Method. Pomodoro is Italian for tomato, and I have no idea how that relates to this time-saving hack, but just some random factoids for you. But the Pomodoro Method is where you do 25 minutes of focused work and then you take a 5-minute break and do something completely different. I like to utilize this when I am doing my most boring tasks, but things that have to get done for my business. And those 2 tasks for me are editing YouTube videos and listing. I cannot tell you how many times my husband has found me slumped over my laptop in my bed, which that's mistake number 1, is like, why am I trying to get work done in my bed when it's boring work and I'm tired? But he has found me asleep with, like this, with my laptop in my lap while doing things like listing and editing YouTube videos because they're so boring and they do require a good amount of time. And so I like to utilize the Pomodoro method for those two tasks. So what that means is I will sit down, not in my bed, and I will set my timer for 25 minutes. I will try to do my very best work for 25 minutes. And then when the timer goes off, I will set another timer for 5 minutes and go do something else. Sometimes it means going to get a little snack, going to the bathroom. Maybe it means I'm putting dishes in the dishwasher or cutting up some vegetables for dinner that night. But what I am doing is something completely different just to really give my mind and my body a break. It's important to me too in that 5-minute span to do something that gets me out of my seat. Like I'm not going to stop listing and then check my emails. That's not a different enough of a task. I'm just actually going to get up out of my chair and go do something completely different. And then after that 5 minutes of break has passed, I'll come back and devote another 25 minutes of focused time to my task at hand. It has helped so much to break up large chunks of time when I have to do something that is just really boring and difficult to do. It has helped me remain focused, especially just kind of knowing like it's not just going to be hours on end, but knowing that there's a break coming up soon. It does something for me mentally, I feel like, and it just helps me get really good work done in that 25 minutes. And also like allows me to be productive in other ways, like starting dinner in that 5-minute span. Great. Getting the laundry started in that 5-minute span. Amazing. Like these are things that maybe I wouldn't be able to do otherwise, but having those built-in breaks throughout helps me accomplish not only a big task at hand, but also get started with other things that I need to do that day anyways. So those are the tips that I wanted to share with you in today's video to help you hopefully get more out of the limited time that you have to devote to your side hustle. I hope that you found those tips helpful. I hope you try out a bunch of them. Let me know down in the comments below which tips you are planning on trying out, or if you were able to even try any of them, which tips you found worked really well for you. If you enjoyed this video, let me know by hitting that like button and I'll try to make more content like this for you. Make sure to hit that subscribe button as well so that you can see how I'm doing with my own side hustle, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye!